How's it going, guys? Will here, and as some of you may know, over the past few days, I've been using this iPhone 12 as my personal phone. If you've been in the loop, then you will know that this is a new release from Apple, and something that I've certainly at least noticed over the last few years is an increasing effort on Apple's side to really push for those smartphone cameras. So today, I decided to come up with a load of different tests to really put this thing through its paces. We're going to be testing the standard lens, we're going to be testing the ultra-wide, the night mode, the portrait mode, all the photo features of this standard iPhone 12. Let's go take some photos.
Not only is it the best time of day to be doing this, but at least in my opinion, it's also the best time of year to be doing this too. Honestly, Apple releasing this more or less photo-focused phone could not have come at a better time. Anyway, let's go take some photos. Alright, so first we're going to be testing the regular focal length, so that's the one-time zoom, and we are going to get multiple shots, but first of all, I'm really in the mood for a detail shot. Alright, so I have found a nice detail shot here. We got some really nice colours in these leaves, as well as some red berries. So yeah, number one shot. That does look pretty cool, actually. You know what, let's get another medium shot, just of some leaves this time, though. Certainly one of them will do. I think we're going to go with one last horizon shot now, but instead of using the ultra-wide lens, I'm just going to use the standard lens because I really want to see what the dynamic range is like with this focal length. Let's go with a nice portrait one, and now with a nice horizontal one. Ah, that's bright. Next up, we're at this field right here. So this field has been the background in many a video of mine, and so it only seems fair that the first ultra-wide photo we take is of this field. Let's get a nice looking... Oh, the colours on this phone do look amazing. Love how nice and saturated they look. So I've just spotted our probably second ultra-wide shot. Now, this isn't too far from the first. However, it's a totally different subject. It's going to be a pretty difficult one, but wow. This is also going to be a great test of dynamic range because the sun is right there, as you can see in the video. All right, let's get the shot. Okay, so dynamic range seems to be a serious strong point of this phone. That is amazing. Can you just see the sun peeking through those branches there? That is really cool. Okay, nice. You know, this would be a lot easier if I wasn't constantly getting distracted by cool shots. I think we're gonna have to. There we go. Got all the ultra-wide shots. Now to progress onto the portrait mode before we lose the light. See, it is such a nice time of day, especially for photography, but damn does it go fast. Guess that's why they call it the golden hour. I mean, it's an hour. Wonder how long we've actually been shooting for so far. Not actually that long, so we have got a little bit of time left. Definitely gonna have to hurry things up though. All right, so I'm back home at the moment because there seems to be this tree here that is pretty much always good to take photos of no matter the season. Gotta say, those actually do look pretty fantastic, especially considering they were taken on a phone. There are some things that I have noticed already that we are going to be talking about later, but for now, let's take some more photos. Alright, so yeah, those do look pretty great. Test isn't quite over yet though. In fact, the next test is of course going to be the night mode, and seeing as it's not quite night yet, see you guys when it's dark. Okay, welcome back to my garden. We are now late into the evening, and what better time to test out the night mode? On the 12 Lite, the night mode does, of course, work on all cameras now, so I definitely think we're going to be able to have some fun with that. Alright, let's go take some photos. You know what? That actually looks pretty good. Alright, let's go take some more. Try an ultra-wide one now. Yeah, once again, pretty nice. All right, guys, so it is pretty cold now. I'm gonna go take some more night mode photos now. Then we'll go take a look. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these photos that we took. First of all, we're going to be taking a look at the standard focal length photos. So the first one we took was of these berries. As we can see, we have a really nice amount of sharpness. The colors look really good and saturated, and there does seem to be a good amount of dynamic range. Now, bear in mind, I did shoot these at sunset where the light is at its most soft, but regardless, we were shooting directly into the sun. We can also, thanks to that faster aperture, see some more background blur. Now, seeing as the iPhone doesn't use a big sensor, honestly, it's not going to make a huge difference. But regardless, a faster aperture will mean a little bit of extra background blur as well as better low light performance. So
always nice to see. Next up, another one I was pretty impressed with was this dynamic range test. So this was just a vertical shot of the field. If we look at the grass, we can see that it's properly exposed. It doesn't look muddy or like overly raised. And if we look into the light, again, we were shooting into the sun, so the fact that it's exposed this almost perfectly, really impressive. Next up, we have another photo of some leaves. Now here we can see, again, great dynamic range with this thing. Often with a camera like this, even though this is technically a professional level camera, it won't do the best job of conserving the highlights. In fact, often you'll have to take multiple photos or go seriously hard with the raw file for you to stand a chance of recovering anywhere near that amount of dynamic range. So does this mean the iPhone's the better camera? Not really. However, it does have one significant advantage over almost every other DSLR on the market. See, this phone camera has 2 focal lengths and a pretty small sensor, so if Apple were to build this without any computing technologies, then the results wouldn't be great. You wouldn't be able to get any blurry backgrounds, low light photos wouldn't look all that good. I say you wouldn't be able to get any blurry backgrounds, you would be able to get some, but just not to the level that portrait mode is. Because of the image processing and things like HDR, the iPhone 12 keeps most dynamic situations lit very evenly, and there isn't a dramatic drop in saturation or contrast. Put simply, that compute power helps the photos look still natural, but also pretty good. And I think that's something that Apple has seriously nailed down over the last few generations of the iPhone. I noticed it when I was reviewing the iPhone 11, and I've definitely noticed it again here. Going back to the image in question, we can see that the colors look nice and saturated, again, nice and sharp, and the dynamic range just ties this image together. Yeah, honestly, very impressed. I've just realized I haven't been wearing my hat the entire time. 1 minute. Anyway, back to it. So next up, we're going to be talking about the ultra-wide lens. Now, this is something that actually took a little while to grow on me. As some of you may know, I was really fond of the telephoto lens on the older iPhones, but as I started using it, as I started experimenting with the types of photos I could get with an ultra-wide, I really grew to enjoy it. So let's take a look at what I could get. Alright, so first of all, we have this nice landscape. We've got the leading lines with the gate, and once again, this is a nicely balanced in terms of light level, nicely saturated. To be honest, not a lot wrong with this. If we do look in the corners, we can see slight bits of warping. Now, this is actually pretty common on ultra-wide lenses. Because they're so wide, they can occasionally get that fisheye effect. Now, this can usually be fixed in a program like Lightroom, but I've found, especially on the mobile photography side of things, leaning into it as an effect can actually be pretty fun. We'll get to a photo where I've done that in a minute. Yeah, honestly, not a lot I can say. This is a very general photo, but the iPhone 12 seems to have done well. Okay, so next up we have a slightly more intensive photo. However, I really like how this one turned out. So again, this was another landscape photo, but this time we were shooting towards the sun. As I said, nice golden hour light, and here, I think this has really highlighted the colors of the iPhone. That's something a lot of people really don't take into consideration when they're taking their photos. Color science is real. If we take a look into the sky, we can see really nice looking organic blues. The greens are nice and saturated and a good hue. Occasionally, with some photo brands, greens can look a little bit warm. However, on the iPhone, they look pretty much perfect. Again, if we dig for that dynamic range, we can see the darker areas do look nice. And if we look at the sun, we even get a nice little lens flare. Honestly, it's not perfect. I mean, you can still see a little bit of a roll off into the sky. However, for a phone sensor, this is pretty damn good. In terms of that ultra wide distortion, I can't really see much of it here, to be totally honest. So yeah, in terms of colors and dynamic range, ultra wide lens on the iPhone 12 will do fantastically well. All right, so next up we have the final ultra wide photo. Now again, this is one of my favorite photos to take with an ultra wide lens because of the way an ultra wide lens will compress an image, and I don't mean in terms of file format or like size. I mean in terms of lens compression. Photos kind of look longer, if that makes any sense. If we take a look at this photo sweeping down the road, because of that ultra wide focal length, the road looks significantly longer. So yeah, color, sharpness, and dynamic range all look great on this photo. Kind of just threw that one in there because I wanted to give you guys a little photo tip. Moving on, we have the portrait mode. Now this is one of those computing tools I was talking about earlier, and if you don't know what this is, it essentially fakes a blurry background like you would get on a DSLR. Once again, because these sensors in these phones are pretty small, you're not really going to be able to get that much organic background blur. However, because of clever computing, you are still able to get that blurry background. So how does it perform on the iPhone 12? Well, taking a look at the first shot of these crab apples, we can see that it's significantly significantly better than in previous years. I mean, obviously this technology isn't perfect, and often a telling sign of a portrait mode type of technology would be slightly skewed edges. However, as I said in my unboxing video, and I'm now doubling down on, I think the portrait mode accuracy has been significantly improved with the iPhone 12. You can still control how much of that fake background blur you can get, but I found that due to the accuracy, you can actually add a little bit more nowadays. If we take a look at some of these leaf shots, because again, it would be stuff like this that gives it away traditionally, we can see that the edges actually look pretty damn phenomenal. I mean, even with this seed photo, the effect actually works pretty well, which is, of course, nice. Okay, so next up we have the night mode, which actually did see some improvements on the iPhone 12 from the iPhone 11. If you've been following me for a while and you've seen my iPhone 11 content, then you may know that the night mode was one of my favorite features. So how's it different with the iPhone 12 and how does it perform? Well, first of all, it now works on all focal lengths. Before it would only work on that standard 1x zoom. However, now it works on the ultra-wide and the front-facing camera. But how does it perform? Well, on the front-facing camera, it isn't quite as good as on the main two cameras. I found that skin tones do look a little bit more contrasty, and there is just that little bit more noise than with the main cameras. However, this is to be expected, and I'd say for general selfie use, the night mode on the iPhone 12 would certainly cut it for me. That said, how does it perform on the main lenses? In order to properly test the night mode on the iPhone 12, I took a range of photos on both focal lengths in a range of different light levels. So this first one I took was with the 1x zoom lens, simply of a chair in my house at nighttime. And I've got to say, this is probably the ideal level of light. It's still low light, however, it's not pitch black. As we can see, if we look closer, it's still nice and sharp. I mean, not as sharp as a non-night mode photo, but there's also a distinct lack of noise. And so yeah, in the 1x zoom in moderately low light, night mode, great. However, let's take a look at a slightly darker one. As we can see, we have this photo of me holding my camera. Now, this was a pretty difficult photo to get. I mean, the camera has a lot of textures and I had to keep it seriously still for like 4 seconds. And so if you're taking photos of something textured, then you may have to still reshoot a couple of times in order to get a perfect picture. I mean, the computing technology behind this thing is good, but it's not magic. Taking a look at a couple of ultra-wide shots, we can see that it actually does look a little bit more contrasty. We can see this clearly by comparing a photo I took of this wall here. So here is the photo on the 1x zoom lens, and then here is that photo on the ultra wide lens. I don't think it looks quite as bright, and as I said, it does look significantly more contrasty, but it is still a fairly clean image. Saturation levels look good, sharpness looks fine for night mode. So yeah, all in all, while I haven't quite found the ultra wide to be as good, I do still think it's pretty usable. However, looking at another photo that I took side by side, you can see that here the light levels are pretty much identical. The colors on the ultra wide look significantly more accurate. However, remember what I said about the warping of the ultra-wide lens earlier on? Yeah, from the looks of it, that can occasionally be a little bit of a problem. So yeah, well, this certainly does seem to be an early quirk of the night mode on the ultra-wide lens. I think this probably is something that can be fixed with updates. Finally, at least for the main photo sections, we have the front-facing camera. Now, this is going to be quicker than most of the other sections. I mean, it's the front-facing camera. Dynamic range, colors, and sharpness all do seem to be good. I mean, yesterday, when I shot this video for the first time, I actually took a photo with this softbox behind me, and even the selfie camera still managed to get the exposure looking pretty good. Yeah, honestly, not really that much I can say about the selfie camera. Portrait mode seems to work well, skin tones are nice and accurate, which is important for a front-facing camera. Yeah, front-facing camera seems to work well. I will, of course, be testing this further, and I'll report my findings in the full review, but for now, in just this fun little camera experiment, selfie camera seems to work fine. Finally, just for a bit of fun as a little bonus round, we have editing the photos. So say you've gone out, you shot some amazing looking photos, and you just want to take them to that next level. So what do? You crack open Lightroom Mobile and you start to edit your photos. Now, this is actually something that I did myself in my previous video. In fact, the wallpaper that I currently have for this phone, I actually took and edited on the iPhone 12. So what was the experience like? Well, first off, when I was editing in Lightroom Mobile, the iPhone 12 didn't skip a beat. Honestly, iPhones have always been pretty good in Lightroom. However, I think that A14 processor is certainly coming in handy in terms of how the actual photos handled being edited. Gotta say, I think it handled it pretty well. Honestly, I think because of the nice amount of dynamic range, as well as the good out-the-box colors and sharpness that the iPhone 12 can provide, until you start pushing into those like crazy cal-up edits, then chances are you won't really have any issues. I mean, to be honest, I have no plans on doing crazy edits on my phone photos anytime soon. In fact, most of the time I just do colors, perspective, cropping, occasionally noise, but that's pretty much it, and the iPhone 12 handled it like a champ. So yeah, overall, overall, I have really enjoyed using this iPhone 12 so far. Photography is now a big part of the modern smartphone experience for me. I mean, I've said before, I have no plans on buying a new point and shoot anytime soon. I mean, especially thanks to the compute power, also the convenience. Phones are a pretty obvious choice for most casual scenarios nowadays. And in my use so far, the iPhone 12 will be great for this. Alright guys, so that's it for today. As always, thank you for watching. Remember to like the video if you want to see more content like this, and smash that subscribe button. If you want to make a one-time donation to the review fund of this channel, that is a link in the description. But as for now, I'm done, and I will see you guys in the next one.